What if I told you that the biblical paradise, that perfect place where it all began, was not a mystical garden floating somewhere in the Middle East, but rather a real place with a specific geographic location, and that this place is in Africa? Well, there are archaeological and genetic discoveries that point to exactly this, and guess what? Most churches don't want you to know. Today I'm going to show you evidence that places the cradle of humanity, the Garden of Eden, right in the heart of Africa. And look, if you are one of those who like to question, to go beyond what they taught you in Sunday school, leave a like because this type of content needs to reach more people. And subscribe to the channel too, because there is a lot of hidden truth waiting to be revealed. Now hold on tight, because what comes next could shake structures you didn't even know existed. In lands where the sun rises with a golden glow and the drums of life echo across the endless horizon, Africa holds ancient secrets, as old as time itself. The savanna, with its vastness, is a silent witness to past eras, where the baobabs, majestic in their presence, stand as guardians of the stories that the wind whispers. And it was under the shadow of these giants that the mysteries of the Garden of Eden began to unravel, revealing a truth that would challenge the world's understanding. At the dawn of time, when the first fire warmed the nights and men danced to the rhythm of drums that imitated the pulse of the earth, mitochondrial Eve's lineage marked its place in the tapestry of existence. On a continent where rivers flow with the wisdom of the ancients and mountains touch the sky with reverence, modern science has begun to trace the path back to our origins, guided by an invisible thread that unites all human beings. The rivers mentioned in sacred scriptures, with their waters that promised fertility and abundance, found an echo in African waterways, which meander through valleys and forests, nourishing the land and the life that springs from it. Africa, with its diversity and resilience, presents itself as the womb of humanity, where the dance of creation manifested itself in its purest and most primordial form. And so the wise men who once sought answers between the sands of Mesopotamia and the hills of Turkey now found themselves faced with a revelation that transcended maps and borders. Africa, the cradle of humanity and potentially Eden, became a point of convergence between faith and science, between myth and reality. In this land where ancestors still walk alongside the living, where every stone and every leaf carries memories of a forgotten time, the Garden of Eden resurfaces not as a place lost in time, but as a living, pulsating idea, rooted in the very essence of what it means to be human. And as the modern world struggles to reconcile this new perspective, the stars continue to watch from above, as they always have, indifferent and eternal, reminding us of the small part we occupy in the vast universe. Therefore, when we turn to Africa, we not only discover a possible setting for Eden, but we also find a mirror reflecting the complexity and unity of our own history. The discovery that now presents itself does not threaten modern theology, but challenges it to expand its borders, to open up to a broader understanding of creation, where the sacred and the scientific dance together under the same starry sky. Thus, in the drum beats that resound in the African night, in the dance of shadows and in the light of bonfires, the tale of Eden is rewritten, not with words written in stone, but with the music of life, an eternal symphony that invites us to participate, to listen and to remember. For in Africa, the heart of the world, the Garden of Eden may well have blossomed and continues to blossom in every soul that dares to dream and seek its roots. In a time when the wind blew with the wisdom of the ancients and the land resounded with the echo of ancient stories, the first signs of a forgotten truth began to emerge. Under the watchful eye of the eternal stars, in 2010, a group of archaeologists and geneticists came together, guided by the ancestral call that transcends eras. With hands calloused by time and minds as sharp as obsidian blades, they set out to map the invisible lines of our heritage, tracing not only human DNA, but also the migratory roots of the ancients. Just as rivers follow their inevitable course to the sea, these scientists discovered that all human populations outside Africa arose from small groups that, like seeds carried by the wind, left their cradle some 60 to 70,000 years ago. Before this great dispersion, all of humanity was concentrated on the African continent, pulsating in unison with the heart of the world. And in this scenario of revelation, a crucial detail emerged from the shadows of oblivion, like a baobab tree that stands tall over the savannah. The Bible, the sacred book of many peoples, tells that after the expulsion of Adam and Eve from Eden, their children spread across the earth, founding civilizations of stone and clay. Cain, in the ancestral narrative, went to the land of Nod, east of Eden, where he built a city. This direction, east, resonates deeply with the path of ancient human migrations towards the Middle East, following the paths that time carved into the earth. What's more, the biblical description of Eden, a garden irrigated by 4 rivers, finds an echo in the heart of Ethiopia, where 4 majestic rivers converge, embracing the land with their fertility and abundance. This region, rich and vibrant, defies the aridity one imagines when thinking of Eden as a distant myth. Here, the mountains whisper tales of crystal-clear waters and verdant forests, a mirror image of sacred description. However, the acceptance of this vision faces barriers erected by time and power, like invisible walls that separate what is from what can be. For many, admitting that flowery Eden was born in Africa is accepting a truth that reorders the origin narrative. Because if Adam and Eve were Africans, then every man and woman, regardless of where their stories took them, shares a common ancestor who first set foot on African land. This revelation challenges the power structures that have shaped Western theology, built on foundations that do not contemplate the vastness and diversity of the African cradle. However, like the fire that purifies and transforms, the truth cannot be contained. It pulses alive in the veins of those who dare to dream of a world where science and spirituality dance under the same sky. And so, in this time of discovery, the drum of truth resonates louder, echoing in the mountains and valleys, inviting humanity to revisit its roots. For in Africa, where the sun rises with a brilliance that warms the soul, Eden is not just a myth, but a living reality, a testimony to the origins of us all. And in this recognition, we find a path to reconciliation and unity, for we are all children of the same sacred land. Under the starry blanket of the African sky, where the ancient winds continue to blow their songs from time immemorial, in 2019, the drum of science reverberated across the vastness of the savannah, bringing to light a revelation that would shake the foundations of established thoughts. A group of scientists, modern sages, with eyes trained to see the invisible and hearts that beat to the rhythm of truth, unraveled a mystery that was embedded in the roots of human existence itself. Guided by the invisible hands of their ancestors, on a journey that crossed the threshold between the known and the unknown, these researchers turned their gaze to southern Africa, close to the majestic Zambezi River, where the waters flow with the strength of 1,000 stories, and the land exudes the perfume of eternity. Between Botswana, Namibia, and Angola, they found a piece of lost paradise, hidden in plain sight, where primitive life not only survived, but flourished with splendor and grace. In this land, where the sun sheds its golden light on landscapes of unparalleled beauty, the ideal conditions came together, as if in a harmonious dance: a stable climate that caressed the skin, abundant water that quenched the thirst of desires, and luxuriant vegetation that spread like a green carpet under the feet of the ancients. It was, in fact, an earthly Eden, a mirror of what the sacred scriptures described in words that echo through the centuries. Gold, bdellium, and onyx stone, treasures that the Bible mentions as adornments of Eden, found their home in this blessed region. South Africa, still today a land rich in gold and precious stones, resonated with the stories buried in the mines and veins of the earth, like a baobab tree whose roots reach deep into the heart of the world. However, when these harbingers of truth attempted to bridge the divides of science and spirituality, offering a vision that transcended the barriers of time and human narratives, they were met with resistance, not from the fields of science, which have always opened up to the new, but from the walls erected by those who, for centuries, shaped Western theology. Admitting that Eden flourished in Africa meant embracing a truth that challenged the carefully sculpted image of Adam and Eve as fair-skinned figures drawn by the hands of Renaissance artists. Resistance rose up like a raging river, trying to drown the truth in its turbulent waters. Because accepting that Eden was in Africa was accepting that humanity shares a common ancestor that bore the color of the African soil, warm and vibrant, like the continent's very soul. This threatened narratives of superiority and choice, built on a pedestal of historical convenience. But the truth, like the unshakable force of a river that finds its way to the sea, cannot be stopped. She broke the chains of silence, offering humanity a mirror where everyone can see the reflection of their origins. And in this reflection, we find not divisions, but a tapestry of connections that unites all people, regardless of color, belief, or origin. And so, as the sun sets over the African savanna, dyeing the sky with colors that only nature can paint, humanity is called to dance to the rhythm of revelation, to listen to the drum of truth that resonates in every heart, that still dares to dream of a world where the past and the present are in harmony. In southern Africa, among rivers and fertile lands, Eden continues to flourish, not only in its landscapes, but in every soul that recognizes the beauty of diversity and the unity of creation. In the times that followed, under the starry sky where the ancestors continue to watch, a silent movement began to germinate in the shadows of cathedrals and the learned halls of seminaries. A group of theologians, bold as warriors of words, rose up to challenge the status quo. Guided not by a causeless rebellion, but by a truth that pulsed through their veins like the rhythm of an ancient drum. With the courage that only those who walk in the light of wisdom possess, they sought to weave a new tapestry of understanding, where the threads of science and faith intertwine in harmony. In the parchments they wrote, and in the words they spoke to packed auditoriums, these modern sages tried to illuminate the darkness of ignorance with the flame of knowledge. They sought to show the world that accepting the African origin of humanity does not diminish the majesty of the sacred scriptures, but rather enriches them, revealing a complex tapestry full of universal truths that transcend time and space. However, like the trees that stand alone in the vastness of the savannah, these voices found themselves isolated, relegated to the margins of great theological discussions, especially in the bastions of Western thought. In the imposing seminaries of the United States and Europe, the theory of African Eden was treated as a distant echo, a heresy resounding in the halls where conservatism reigned supreme. The reason? Acceptance of this truth threatened to dismantle deeply rooted power structures like the roots of an ancient baobab tree. Admitting that Eden flourished on African soil meant confronting centuries of distorted justifications which used the Bible to cover up the atrocities of slavery. It was then revealed that it was not just a question of subjugating a people, but of imprisoning the seeds from which all humanity germinated. It meant recognizing that racism, which became poisonous in religious institutions, had no divine or scientific foundation. It was in fact an invention of men, a political construction that served dark purposes. The solution for those who clung to the old paradigm was simple: silence. Continue teaching that Eden rose in the sands of Mesopotamia, far from the African savannas. Persist in the representation of Adam and Eve as fair-skinned figures in illustrations that adorn thousands of temples and sacred books. Ignoring evidence that contradicted the convenient tale, like a river that refuses to follow its natural course. And so, entire generations of Christians grew up unaware that the very foundation of their faith was rooted in the heart of Africa. That Jesus, whose mission was to redeem humanity from the fall of Eden, had a deeper connection with the African continent than had ever been taught. That the beginning and purpose of biblical history pointed to a land that, due to vested interests, was erased from official narratives. But the drum of truth never stops beating. Its sound echoes through time, inviting those who hear it to join in the dance of revelation. For history, like the river that always meets the sea, cannot be eternally contained. It flows, bringing to light the truth that was once forgotten. And in accepting this truth, humanity discovers a path to reconciliation, where science and spirituality unite in a cosmic embrace, under the eternal gaze of the stars. Beneath the vast starry sky of Africa, where constellations draw invisible maps and winds blow with the wisdom of millennia, truth rises like an inevitable tide, destined to wash away the sands of time and reveal the secrets hidden beneath the weight of the ages. Eden, with its leafy trees and rivers of pure water, is not just a distant myth, but a reality that beats in the heart of the African continent, waiting to be recognized in its fullness and magnificence. And so, amidst the rustle of leaves and the song of birds that accompany the sunrise, the revelation of the conflict emerges, like a warrior who rises to face the darkness of ignorance and prejudice. Because placing Eden in Africa is not just a geographical reconsideration, but a profound re-evaluation of the narratives that shape the history of humanity. Over the centuries, the distorted interpretation of sacred texts has served as a tool of oppression, justifying atrocities in the name of a curse that was never pronounced by the heavens. The curse of Ham, used as a veil of legitimation for the enslavement of Africans, is not supported by divine truth, but by human ambition. And if Eden, the place of the first communion between God and man, flourished in the African womb, then the narrative of racial purity and superiority crumbles like a sandcastle before the relentless waves of truth. Adam and Eve, molded from the sacred clay of Africa, become symbols of union, not division. Because in the cosmic dance of creation, all human beings are brothers, sharing the same ancestor who walked under the African sun, who felt the warm earth beneath their feet and the gentle wind on their face. And so, the acceptance of African Eden is a journey of return home, of reconciliation with our common roots, which transcend the barriers of color and culture that time has erected. However, facing this truth requires courage, like that of a lion protecting its pride. It means recognizing the mistakes of the past, asking forgiveness for distorted stories and manipulated narratives, and understanding that the Church, at many times, was complicit in one of the greatest crimes in history. It means opening your heart to the pain of those who have suffered and still suffer, and working tirelessly to repair the wounds that still bleed. But resistance rises, like a wall of fear and denial. It is easier for many to ignore the evidence and continue to propagate the image of a distant and undefined Eden, to avoid confronting the consequences of decades of omission and falsehood. However, like the sun that rises every day, the truth cannot be obscured forever. It persists, illuminating the shadows, challenging us to look in the mirror and see reflected not only what we were, but what we can become. And so, increasingly, the voices of those seeking the truth unite in a growing chorus. Scientists, progressive theologians, and African historians, united by the invisible thread of justice, work to bring this truth to light, showing that the Bible and science are not adversaries, but allies in the search for understanding the divine. Together they reveal that the origin of humanity is a tale of beauty and complexity rooted in African soil, where Eden, if it existed, continues to flourish. Under the African sky, the dance of revelation continues, an eternal symphony that calls us to awaken, listen, and accept. For in the embrace of the African Eden, we find not only a shared past, but the promise of a future where unity and diversity intertwine like the stars in the firmament, guiding us towards a world of understanding and peace. Under the blanket of stars that never go out, where the African land still retains the heat of the first sun, we are facing a crucial moment, a turning point in the history of humanity. Like a river that finds its way between rocks and valleys, the truth about the Garden of Eden, as old as the winds that caress the savannas, emerges with the force of 1,000 drums, resonating in souls yearning for justice and reconciliation. Here a choice presents itself, like the fork in a path that stretches ahead. On the one hand, there is the family trail, paved with the stones of traditions that were imposed by those who wrote history with the ink of power. There, Eden is a distant myth, placed in lands that served the purposes of a domain that relegated Africa to the shadow of its own greatness. But on the other side, there is a new path, illuminated by the incandescent glow of rediscovered truth, where Eden shines in its most authentic form, rooted in African soil. Choosing this second path requires courage, like that of warriors who rise up to defend their people. It is a call to look beyond the paintings and images that for centuries have sold us an illusion, and see the reality that Adam and Eve, the first to walk under the sky, were children of Africa, molded by the same clay that still shapes life today. This revelation challenges the narrative that Eden was an ethereal garden, lost in the mists of Europe, and invites us to embrace Africa as the true cradle of humanity, where the divine and the human first met. This understanding does not come without a cost. It involves confronting the power structures that have benefited from the erasure of the truth. It is recognizing that racism, which for so long has been fueled by biased interpretations of Scripture, is a construction that urgently needs to be deconstructed. And on this journey, each of us must take responsibility for rewriting history, weaving a new fabric of understanding that respect and celebrate the diversity and unity of the human race. For those who have the courage to follow this path, the rewards are immense. It is the chance to experience a faith that breathes honesty and a theology that is based on justice. It is an invitation to recognize the beauty and wisdom that Africa offers, not as a separate continent, but as the beating heart of our common origin. And in accepting this truth, we find a deeper connection with all peoples, colors, and cultures, which together form the mosaic of humanity. Unto the stars that watch over us, the call resounds, an echo of the voices of the ancestors that waited so long to be heard. The question remains, are we ready to accept that it all started in Africa, that the Garden of Eden in all its glory flourished in the lands that today cry out for recognition and respect? For those who answer yes, the discovery is not just a revelation, but a quiet revolution that promises to transform not only how we view history, but also how we choose to live our present. And so as the winds of truth continue to blow, may every awakened heart dance to the sound of the ancestral drum, celebrating the reunion with its roots and the promise of a future where the harmony between science and faith guides our steps under the eternal sky. For in the acceptance of the African Eden, we find the key to a more just world, where diversity is celebrated and unity is the legacy we leave for future generations.